Hi everyone. Looking at the charts today, we did have a massive gap up, immediately gave all of that back, filled the gaps, and then had a little bit of a rally into the end of the session. More concerningly here is you can see we broke back below the SMA here, looking for the retest. If we get the rejection from here, that's going to be concerning. But let's take a look at the rest of the charts and see if we can find some market direction. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to Fear and Greed, 61 today from a 60 on the Friday session. Not a lot of movement here, but momentum back into extreme greed. Interesting. Looking at the timeline here, it's basically flat movement, but this has been climbing steadily. Strength also climbing higher, but still in fear. Breadth actually jumping a little bit here into fear. Interesting to see that. So these metrics are going a little stronger. Put call ratio getting down to a very critical level. This is a big concern for me here at 0.62. You can see it just doesn't get that low for very long. 0.62 immediately started to grind up into a dip low for markets. And you can see how this correlates here with that kind of falling price action. So that was a top, and then we did see that fall, very correlated here with that put call ratio. So interesting to see those levels here. And we are once again into that very, very low level. Volatility neutralized, still hovering at that 14.5 area. Safe haven and junk bonds really haven't moved. Still greed and extreme greed. Moving over to seasonality just for a moment, wanted to highlight that this is supposed to be a very bullish period. So we're supposed to see bullishness through the end of the month. And so far that's been the case. It is a little bit choppy here from the 25th into the 26th, slight decline, but then rally 27, slight decline, 29th. But either way, grinding higher, higher highs and higher lows. Looking at the calendar, basically nothing for today. 2-year note auction, basically in line with the previous at 4.27. And then for tomorrow, not a whole lot either. Consumer confidence. New home sales might move markets a little bit. FOMC minutes, that's really the thing I'm most concerned about this week. And then for Wednesday, you have GDP, core durable goods, fairly interesting. Core PCE, not expecting really much out of inflation anymore at this point, in my opinion. And then looking at the Thursday, Friday here, Thanksgiving obviously for Thursday, and then we do have basically nothing here for the Friday. And remember, that is a short trading session. Moving over to Max Pain, didn't move here at 585, but remember on the daily chart, we did have a little bit of bullishness going into the Monday, Tuesday. So far that's flipped a little bit. You can see some bearishness in here now after the repricing we got today. And we'll take a look at the charts why this might make sense. Is it going to be 4 and 5% down? Probably not. But I do think that the direction on these markets does have a little bit of an impact. Not so much today, but I think it could here over the next couple days. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we got another gap up and fall slightly. Still stayed up about 1/3%, and it is rallying a little bit here in the after hours. I do like to see that. We did touch this high from the Monday, the 11th session. You can see the high there was 617, and the high today was 686. So that's technically a new all-time high here for the SPY. Momentum bullish, RSI just barely above the SMA. So we've kind of changed that condition. They were trending up together, but now we are back above it, back into this kind of consolidation range around 62, 63 for the SMA. So we'll see if we continue to kind of grind in here, or if this is going to double top. Maybe we push through here right up to these levels up in the 612.50 area. Otherwise, another bullish day, but still a little bit hesitant. And you can see that here on the hourly charts, like we talked about in the open, it was a big gap up. Hit that all-time high through the wicks to that level. You can see here touching that level and then pulling back fairly dramatically, 4 down bars in a row on the hourly, hit the 21, overthrew it dramatically, filled the gap, which was good. So we don't have a gap going forward, got the gap fill. Now we're rallying up back to this trend. Want to see it get above here, that 599.64 level, touch that level, hold, get the continuation. And just another point here, you can see 599.64 was the level, continues to be a very important level, stopped right at it, overthrew it, again, opened at that level and then sold. So interesting there. And like we talked about in the intro, this is critical, right? So we're right at that SMA. If we get into that zone and we reject from there and then we start to head to a lower low, that's going to be very, very concerning for markets. You would end up getting like a double topping pattern here, pull back to these lower trends. That would give you 593.60. And if we did touch that level and then pull back, that would give you about a 1% down move. And then because we are so extended on some of these charts, there is always potential that we start to break some of the structure in here. And then your next support would be all the way down at 585.91. That would be what I would be looking for here. So right now, still looks good. Want to see it break out, hold, and push, giving you that medium-term target that we talked about over here in the 612s. But you always have to be prepared for that potential change in structure, which would happen here in my opinion, and that RSI is concerning. Moving over to those Tasty charts here, you can see upper ATR band sitting at 602.12. On that first candle, we basically got right to it at 684, which is right in line with those all-time highs. Touched that, immediately pulled back to the 8 EMA, held the 8 EMA, continues to rally here. Volume not a whole lot, fairly normal for a Monday, especially on a holiday week. But if we do get that continuation up, that would give you 602.12, which is about another 1% higher or so. So if we touch that, then we'll see what happens. So far, we got a first rejection off of that level. Lower ATR bands basically flat, upper bands still trending higher. So everything here still says medium term, relatively bullish. Moving over to the NASDAQ, we actually got a very similar thesis on the move. You can see the gap up and fall on that candle. 0.16 on the day. Momentum still bearish, not stepping to bullish the way the SPY is. And you can see we're still well below that SMA. They're both trending up, which is what we've been seeing. Again, a little bit weird. But the structure here is not nearly as bullish as the SPY. The SPY looks like it's really ready to go. You can see we're not testing this previous high the way the SPY was. So again, structurally, the NASDAQ showing a little bit of weakness relative to the SPY. Otherwise, after hours still looks okay. You can see it here on the hourly chart, continuing to chop within this range, hit the upper band, immediately pulled back to the lower band, touch the trend, rallying up from there. If this continues, your short-term target would be that 511.50 area. Again, the SMA on the RSI downtrending. We're right at it. If it's going to reject, this is probably where you would expect to do it, especially with hitting those overbought conditions in the pre-market and then rejecting from there. If we double top in that area, again, going to be concerning. Still watching this as a potential setup as a bear flag here on the NASDAQ. It would be a very long bear flag at this point. Down move, bear flag, nearly retracing this entire move. Again, not super common to see it do all of that and then break down, at least in the same dramatic way that you would expect a bear flag to do it. Usually it's pretty short term, couple of touches, and then it breaks kind of in here. But so far, this seems to be holding up. Touch the top, touch the bottom, looking for another touch of that upper trend. Again, 511.50, 511.80, somewhere in there. Moving over to the Tasty charts here for the NASDAQ. Again, you can see we hit that second ATR band, didn't get all the way to the top. Again, showing a little bit of weakness relative to the SPY. Touched that second band at 510.83. Pulled back to the 21 EMA, pulled back to the mid-range, touched those levels, then rallied back above the 8. Again, basically no volume, momentum basically zero. Continuing to grind very, very slowly to the bull side. Short-term target would be that second ATR band. Again, 511.41, basically in the same area as we just talked about on the previous charts. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell gapped up massive 1.52%, got all the way to our target at 244.46, touched that level and then pulled back. You can see that takes you all the way back to the all-time high back here in November of 21. So you've touched the all-time high. Technically, it's a new one there at 244.98. Rejected from there. It's up after hours. Momentum still bullish. RSI showing a little bit of divergence there. So you do have right here was your peak at 75.40, and now you can see we're at a higher price just barely with an RSI of 68.25. So a little bit of divergence on price between the RSIs. That's a little concerning, but momentum still bullish. I'm still expecting a push up to this trend line here around the 252 area. See how long that lasts. Is it going to continue up here and then stall out and retrace, or is it going to break through there, start some new price discovery on the Russell? Hard to say really. And then looking at the Dow did a very similar move, gap up, hit the trends, ended up dojing right at those trends. Let's go ahead and extend them out. Right there, we hit the target that was at that 447.50 area. We talked about it on the weekend video, touched those levels. Now you could see some grinding action. Maybe we overthrow to the next one here at 452.70. Momentum bullish, RSI still super overbought. This is a dramatic run here for the Dow. It continues to look pretty bullish, just like we thought that it would be. Moving over to ULTA, I got asked about ULTA, so let's take a look at it. This is the weekly chart. You can see this trend line here marking a bottom in March of 2013. Again, June of 14 marks a bottom in July of 20. Now we are here once again in August of 24 and then again in November. You can see midlines here, taking it back to this November time frame here. Marks some kind of midpoints, most of this consolidation in here in 2022. And now zooming in here to give you some context, you can see nearly perfect touch of this trend. You got an initial touch, rally up, double touch here. Now we're starting to look for a little bit more rally up. Probably going to get into this consolidation range around here, around 382, 383. Probably going to get here 272, 273 on that weekly chart for the consolidation of EMAs. But realistically, this topping pattern in here, the highly traded zone right there as well, 283.30. And then my next level would be 404.99, basically 441 here at these top consolidations. Then you got the 200 in there at 410.87. But remember, this is the weekly chart, and if I were looking for a medium-term target, I would be looking for it to bounce from this trend line up to the next trend here. So once you get this break above this consolidation kind of midpoint, push through these levels, you want to see a touch of this mid trend up around that 480 area. That's what I would be looking for. Again, this would be a very long-term style trade. These are many, many weeks that it would take for this to happen. We touched this back in the beginning of August, and then we got a touch of this here at the end of September. So you'd be in this trade for a while, waiting for that level to happen. But again, if you did get a move like that, even from current price, that would give you an opportunity of around 30% style move over the next couple months or so, potentially. I do like this setup. This does look like a low, higher low, touch of the trend, solid levels to work off of, 340, and a pretty tight stop for a trade of this nature, right, where you have about a 30% upside potential, and your trend support to the downside is about 7%. So understand those are your risks, about 7% for your stop. You could obviously do it a little bit tighter if you wanted. We're already coming off of the bottom here. Maybe you do a little bit tighter stop in here around 350, somewhere in there. But realistically, this structure is going to hold as long as this trend in here holds. You want to see it push to this level, continue up to this trend in here. Momentum's bullish, RSI is bullish. And then jumping down to that daily chart, again, just understand you do have a little bit of overhead resistance. Again, resistance in that 370 to 377 range. And then the 200 right at your next level in here around 405 or so, the 200s at 411 on the daily chart. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple had a good day, 1.31%, momentum bullish, RSI still bullish, continues to push here, gapped through the level, gapped through the trend, looking to push up to 237.20, somewhere in this area here. Everything says this should continue to go higher, looks good, broke through that structure like I talked about. And then looking at Microsoft here, gapped up and dojied, so it's still fighting this battle, still in this same consolidation range it's been in for nearly forever, it feels like. Got back into this area towards the end of July, and we are still here towards the end of November. So no real gains on Microsoft unless you're selling options against it. Current support 413, current resistance 429. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, both of these having rough days, down 3.9 and 4.1% respectively. Momentum almost bearish, RSI breaking down. Your current support is 336.67, down just a couple of cents after hours, pretty much right at that level. So looks like this is double topping at the level we had, 355.03. Touched that level. We expected to reject from there again. We hit it on Friday, couldn't get above it. Touched it again today, couldn't get above it, and we're back into the same trading range we've been in. At this point, you would expect a little bit more sell-off in my opinion. Doesn't mean we're going to see a change in structure by any means. You still expect a higher low setup, but in the short term, this does look bearish. And actually looking at NVIDIA here, this looks like a change in structure, pretty big down move. So didn't gap at all, just fell throughout the session, straight down, open flat, fell all day, broke the level, 140.76. That was the level. Once it went, we did expect it to go. Your next target here is that 55 EMA at 132.72. Next level 130.35. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. NVIDIA just cannot hold this kind of valuation off of the earnings that they had. Wasn't strong enough. It was good, but not strong enough. And it seems like we're going to see a little bit more selling. If this continues to fall, that would give you about another 4.25% potential. Obviously, you have that 55 EMA, which is about half that move in there. Maybe 2% lower, but 4.25 down to that next support at that 130.35 level. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet, you can see Amazon caught a bid here, 2.2%. Everything on the structure said this should continue lower, but now you have a step to bullish momentum. Maybe we get a retracement, a retest of the SMA. It was a little extended off that SMA, so looking for a retouch there. Maybe you get another 1 or 2 days of push into that zone. Again, I would look at this as a slight downtrend, but we'll see how it plays out. It is technically back above my level here at 255 cents. If you can get a continuation here through that 9 at 203.81. Then maybe you could look for a push back up to this level here. See how it plays out. Right now you're still in this kind of downtrending structure. And then looking at Google, actually faring pretty well on the day, 1.72%, coming off of that 200 touch, coming off the touch of the trends. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, but again, just very, very extended here. Let me take off volume so you can see what that looks like. Very extended off the SMA. Look for a rally to the SMA, rejection from there based on how this looks. In my opinion, especially with the high, lower high setting up here, broke down, retested the level 179.42, touched that level almost to the penny, overthrew it slightly, rejected off that 8 EMA. You also got the cross here now on the 9 and 21. So you got the 9 below the 21, one of those early indicators that you're starting to see a change in structure, at least in the short term. Doesn't mean you can't rally back up here, 21 EMA, reject from there, and then continue lower. But overall, I do think this is starting to change structure, especially with that catalyst of the DOJ potentially breaking up Google. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples continues to go about 0.5%. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, hit the next level, 82.53. See if it pulls back slightly. It is a little extended now, but we'll see how it plays out. Let's go ahead and extend out this trend line here. Next target would be the trend at 82.90. Next level, 83.43. Everything looks good here for staples to keep going. And then looking at discretionaries, gapped up and dojied to a new all-time high. That was at 222.27. Falling a smidgen after hours. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. We'll see if we hit overbought conditions tomorrow. My guess is that we will. We'll touch those overbought conditions and then potentially reject there again. You have clear divergence, higher RSI, lower price, lower RSI, higher price here. Waiting to see if this rejects. Generally it will eventually at some point. Doesn't mean you can't see like triple divergence. That does happen occasionally, but this seems to be fairly clean cut. I think we're probably going to pull back from here in my opinion. Moving over to breadth, market breadth continuing to rocket up here. Gap run here on the 20-day, almost to the level already at 86.50. That is where this tends to top out. You can see we're already in that range. Our market's going to top out there, certainly a possibility. And then looking at 50-day, continues to do what we thought it would off of this low, higher low setup. Now you have a high, higher high setup right at the level, gapped right to it at 68.66. Now we did see a little bit of a fall from there, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Based on how this is moving, you would expect, even if we did get a little bit of a pullback in markets, a higher low setup and then continuation style move. So something to consider there. Market breadth showing some bullishness, and it continues to look pretty good here over the last week of trading or so, and it should go a little bit higher in my opinion. 50 days should get into this 77.50 area, so looks pretty good going into tomorrow's session. Moving over to yields. Yields finally decided that they were a little bit expensive here. You can see 2-year falling 2.3% right to the level 4.26, still holding just above that, but momentum bearish, RSI fading. Everything looks like this should continue a little bit lower here. At the very least, it seems to have stopped rallying super aggressively from this 3.5 range to 4.25. Want to see this fall back into the 4 range, maybe retest the 55. But the bigger story here is the 10-year yield. You can see down 2.8%, big catastrophic gap down and fall headed towards that 200, at least down in the 4.2 area. We are very, very close to flat once again on the yield curve, just barely holding in that normalized condition, 4.277 versus 4.273. Want to see this 2-year come down a little bit more, 10-year continuing to fall. So we'll see how it plays out. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish, as you would expect. Moving over to the dollar finally rejected fairly substantially off of this trend. We've seen a couple of pullbacks, but this is a good one here. So we came right to the trend, overthrew it, hit the level 108, touched that level, pulled back, bearish engulf candle right to my level 106.84. Right now it is below it just barely. Now we want to see a retracement, lower high setup, continuation lower. Maybe this is forming a left shoulder head, right shoulder. That would be interesting. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. You can see how that's breaking down here. And then looking at that hourly chart, you can see gap down, fall right to the 200, bounce slightly from there, rejected off the 21 each time, continuing to sell. If this breaks that 200, I think there's a fair amount of pullbacks. And usually as the dollar goes down, that does give equities some room to the upside, but equities seem to be falling here in the after hours, which is interesting. Moving over to bonds. bonds gapped up and rallied quite a bit here, 0.4 and 2.5% here on TLT. This is the base. You got a big gap through all these levels right to my level at 92.82. Watching this one closely, I think we're going to start to see some bigger moves here. Hopefully we get some solid continuation out of it. I would expect higher lows at this point, volume coming in, momentum coming in. I've been saying it for a while. This is the zone. Now we're heading up a little bit. How much higher is it going to go? It's hard to say. Maybe back to the 100 area. It's been a fairly big mover here for TLT over the medium term. You can see we got as low as $82, rallied all the way up to this 100 area, pulled back to 88, 100 again, back here again, higher low in the 90 area. So at the very least, I think we should rally into the 100 area, but who knows? Who knows where it's going? Definitely looks bullish to me though in the short term. Moving over to the VIX, you can see the VIX basically fell all session, nothing crazy, momentum bearish, RSI bearish. It's right at the level, 14.7 is technically below it. See how much more it falls. Markets are cratering here after hours, so maybe we get a little bit of a spike up tomorrow. That would be interesting. Definitely check out those after hour prices. Maybe I'll do a morning update. We'll see how it plays out tomorrow, but after hours falling quite a lot. Moving over to my accounts, I was positive on the day, but now you can see this after hours price action just cratering here. We closed at 242.39 and you can see the IWM is down below 240. So we've fallen nearly $2.50 in there or so towards the end of the session. Again, super crazy. Interesting to see that. I rolled out super aggressive because I do have some holiday plans and I was going to just kind of leave this on over the holidays. We'll see how much opportunity I have to kind of trade in and out of these positions, but I was going to try to leave it. I do like the way that the IWM looks over the medium term. I still would expect higher highs and higher lows, so it seemed like a decent rollout here. But the way this is looking in the short term, maybe I might need to take that off or at least roll it down and in a little bit. Maybe we'll see. But otherwise, continuing to watch the Russell, especially with that down move in the after hours. And then similarly here on the Qs, I took my shares off. Again, the Qs did not look nearly as strong as everything else. Definitely showed some weakness. And then look at this. So we closed at 506.50. We're down below 505. The puts I had on going into tomorrow was 505 and 504, which were in a little bit of a profit. I was doing okay there. You can see I was up $72 on the day, which was fine. Pretty much in line with markets, 80 cents, $72. Fits with that. And the IWM was positive as well. You can see green across the board here. Definitely made some money there. But now you can see in the after hours action that $250 propagating my accounts right now. So see how it plays out. We'll see if this is a real fall or if this bounces back into the pre-market tomorrow. If this is real, then we're probably going to see some shifting to the downside, some changes in structure, because this is a pretty dramatic move in the after hours. More than 1% on the IWM and about 1/3% here on the Qs. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the charts. Are we going to get that breakdown on the after hours action, or is the medium term still holding? We're still in that kind of uptrend action or not? Or what do you think? Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.